All right, gang. Good morning, midday, afternoon. I think that's my intro thing, isn't it? Welcome back to another season 3 Monday Madness. I know you guys are looking forward to this one because I've actually been wanting to cover this case for like quite a while because it blew up on my TikTok, I want to say over a year ago, purely because of the way this guy looks. That's why it's titled The Deadpool Killer. If you are familiar, you will know he's he looks like the Joker. He looks like the Joker, but like an attractive version of the Joker, which drew chicks in, and yeah, his case just blew up. So we're actually going to get into the case, not so much the looks today. And I want to be clear, his real name is not Deadpool Killer, it's Wade Wilson. So today we're going to be covering the case of Wade Wilson in our Monday Madness app. So let's crack in. So in October of 2019, 2 women were brutally murdered in Cape Coral, Florida. So Wade Wilson at the time already had a criminal history, and he was the man responsible for these 2 murders. We're going to get into all of the nitty-gritty details of that. But he ended up strangling one woman while she slept, and then he lured another one to his car and killed her by running her over. Or killed her and then ran her over. Sorry, correcting myself there. One thing that jumped out in this case was he literally said he ran her over until she looked like spaghetti. Sorry, moment of fucking trying to stomach that. Now, he was sentenced to death in 2014. His crimes were described as heinous, atrocious, and cruel. And he even smirked as he watched the verdict. So before Wade was ever branded the Deadpool Killer, and before his face was splashed across the headlines with those chilling Joker fucking tattoos, Wade Wilson was just a boy in Florida. Now, he was born on May 20th, 1994, and was adopted as an infant. He grew up in Tennessee, the state capital, a city with leafy streets, college football pride, and a reputation for being quieter than Miami or Orlando. But Wade's childhood wasn't overly calm. So Wade's adoptive parents were described to be loving, middle class, and involved. They gave him home, structure, and opportunities. So in this story, it's not one where a child is left completely without support. But even within that loving environment, Wade struggled. As a child, he was often described as hard to control. Teachers flagged his behaviour more than once. He would lash out, lose focus easily, and sometimes retreat into anger. At home, his parents had tried discipline, they tried encouragement, but nothing really seemed to stick. And then came the head injuries. At least 4 times in his youth, Wade suffered concussions, accidents, falls, or fights that left him dazed or recovering. Doctors later testified that these injuries would have altered his brain chemistry, essentially in the areas that controlled judgment and impulse. Whether that was the turning point or just one more factor in the storm, no one can really say for certain. So by his teens, Wade was drifting away from his parents, his adoptive parents, and his parents, his biological parents. Sorry, I don't know why that took so long to get out. Now, you are going to hear me sort of jump between his father. I think. Now, I'm going to jump in and specify Wade had adoptive parents and he had his biological parents. Now, he was in contact with his biological parents, his mother and his father. I've watched many interviews with the father, like the biological father, as Wade was and has been in contact with him since his incarceration, leading up to his incarceration, the night of, all of this. His adoptive parents were still trying and still involved, but in regards to who Wade was reaching out to with all of these bizarre, it was his biological dad a majority of the time. His mum had him at 13, and that's why she gave him up for adoption. So she still very much loved Wade and wanted to be a part of Wade's life, but knew she wasn't capable of raising him at that age. Same with Wade's dad. I think he may have been either 13 or 15. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I know that they were young. Just had to put that in there, a little bit of reference. If you're watching visuals, you can probably see my dog. So later at Wade's trial, his father, biological father, would take the stand and would reveal a phone call about the murders that would shock everyone. But we're going to come back to that. So what actually went wrong? We know that Wade's parents weren't abusive, he wasn't starved, and he wasn't beaten at home. Instead, the danger grew from within. A mix of head injuries, substance abuse, poor impulse control, and early exposure to crime. So this meant that by his late teens, Wade was already building a rap sheet. His parents couldn't stop him, arrest after arrest, burglary, theft, gun charges. And it felt as though all of his parents, adoptive and biological, were watching their son slip away. And as Wade had sunk deeper into drugs and hate, his relationship with his family broke down. He pushed them away completely, choosing the chaos of the streets over the stability of home. So by the time most of his peers were planning for college or jobs, Wade was already filling up his rap sheets. Between 2012 and 2007, he'd racked up multiple convictions: burglary and grand theft, breaking into homes and stealing whatever he could, firearm offences, so at one point he was accused of stealing guns, and several other charges were filed and later dropped. Now, he was in and out of jail and in and out of courtrooms. Each time it seemed like he walked out worse than before. So neighbours went on to kind of describe Wade as the sort of guy that had edge to him. He's the kind of person that would smile one second and then lash out the next. So when we actually zoom out on all of that, the warning signs weren't actually subtle. They were pretty stacked. By the age of 12 and 13, teachers were already noting explosive behaviours and impulse issues. By his late teens, he was already building a pretty steady criminal record, breaking into homes, stealing cars, carrying weapons. And then layer that with the multiple head injuries, heavy drug use, and what experts would later describe as attachment disruptions from adoption. You get a cocktail of risk factors we would see again and again in violent offenders. So I want to be clear, I'm not using this as excuses. I'm just stating pattern. This is patterns. Patterns that were essentially leading somewhere dark long before 2019. So that's who he was. He was a boy adopted in Florida, a teen battered with head injuries and addiction, and a young man who built a persona of hate and chaos, painting it on his own face. So before Kristine Melton, before Diane Ruiz, before the name Deadpool killer became the before the name Deadpool killer before this name even became an internet spectacle. Before Wade's name even became an internet spectacle, there was already a Before Wade had even come into light and become an internet spectacle, there was already a woman saying that he was dangerous. And I need you guys to hear this clearly, because this is the part that always seems to get brushed off in the story as messy or personal or relationship drama. Now, while I'm not going to discuss Miller too much in the episode, name drop, while I'm not going to discuss this part too much throughout, I think it's important to bring it up, because if I don't, I know you guys are going to say that there's basically a missing chunk out of the story. So it's important to put a spotlight on it, but I don't want to shift away from Wade's actions, because essentially that's what this is all about. So in February of 2019, months before the murders, Wade's former girlfriend reported on an incident where he had allegedly assaulted and choked her. She initially accused him of kidnapping and rape, but the investigators didn't seem to pursue those charges, and an existing no contact order. And I want you guys to know, I'm not saying that to turn this into a legal lecture of any kind. I'm saying it because this is the exact point where so many cases pivot, where the story is basically standing there waving a red flag and the system is like, we don't quite have enough. Domestic issue. Let's move on. It just seems to be a common denominator in so many fucking murders, so many true crime cases that we cover, that they're sometimes, or not sometimes, at least 85% of the time, we want to say, right, there's a red flag. So when we get to October of 2019 and people ask us, how did this happen or where did this come from? It didn't really come out of nowhere. It was already happening. The choking matters because the choking is not just assault. It's one of the clearest indicators of escalation risk. It's a behavior that tells you this person is practicing control over breath, over life, over whether or not you keep existing. So now we're going to get into Mila. Or Mila. It depends on, I guess, what sort of accent you are. That's how I pronounce it, whether I'm wrong or right. Melissa's full name is Melissa Montanez. Now, this is a pretty critical part of Wade's story because she is one of the few people who actually got close enough to see him and see how he operated and actually lived to tell anyone. Now, Miller later did go on to testify during Wade's trial. She testified about who he was behind the performance and that flip switch sort of energy that he had. The kind of guy who could act normal, charming, funny. And then when the mask drops, suddenly you realize you're sitting beside someone who doesn't really experience empathy in any form. And the thing is with Mila, she's not a headline. She's not a meme and she's not a true crime character at all. She's a real life woman who was intercepted or inserted into this man's story and lives, testing the edges of his violence. And that intersection matters because it shows that he was spiraling in a very specific direction. When you listen to the rest of the episode, the murders, the call to his father, the smirks, the tattoos, the courtroom, I want you to keep this all in the back of your mind. Because Melissa and her part of this story represents what we rarely sit with long enough. It's the part where someone did actually speak. And unfortunately, it didn't change a thing. So by the time 2019 had actually rolled around, Wade Wilson was not just living a troubled life. He was circling the fucking drain. So he was 25 years old at the time, drifting in and out of Cape Coral nightlife, using drugs and carrying around a persona that he had created for himself. The arrogance made him stand out in every single room. He wasn't hiding who he was anymore. He was leaning right into it. So on the night of October 5th into the early hours of October 6th, Wade was out drinking. Witnesses later recalled him at local bars, hanging around, talking to women, trying to charm his way into cars and homes. To some, he did seem harmless enough, just another rough around the edges kind of guy. But to others, there was something unsettling about him. By dawn, Wade had already decided that he wasn't going home alone. That morning, Wade crossed paths with Kristine Melton, 35. So Kristine was a beloved member of the Cape Coral community. She worked, socialized. She had friends who described her as fun-loving, kind, and someone who always had a smile ready. Her family said she was working extremely hard to build stability in her life. She was a sister and a daughter, a woman with roots and with people who deeply cared about her. So Kristine had actually been out on a night out as well. Somewhere along the line, she and Wade ended up together. Whether she invited him back to her home out of friendliness, trust, or just hope of companionship, we will never know. What we do know is that she fell asleep believing she was safe in her own home. Wade made sure that she wasn't. So while Kristine had slept, Wade proceeded to strangle her to death. It was sudden, silent, and brutal, and he left her lifeless body laying in her own bed. Later, when the police had broke the news to her family, the shock was overwhelming. Her loved ones couldn't comprehend how someone could just take her life like that. A stranger who had barely known her. To them, Kristine was more than just a victim. She was a woman full of life and laughter, gone too soon and taken in a moment of unimaginable cruelty. Unfortunately, Wade was not finished. Only hours later, he spotted Diane Ruiz walking along the road in Cape Coral. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. Again, my accent, man. Australians we don't have a knack or a way with pronouncing things nicely. So Diane was 43, a mother and a woman described by her family as resilient. She had struggled with addiction over the years, but she was also a fighter. Friends said she was compassionate, someone who loved to laugh, and someone who always had tried to push forward even when life had knocked her down. Her children absolutely adored her. So when Wade pulled up in his car and offered her a ride, she probably thought nothing of it. Maybe she thought he was even just being helpful. She maybe thought she'd catch a lift across town. Instead, Wade decided to drive her to a remote area. There, his violence escalated. He strangled her just as he had Kristine. But with Diane, it didn't stop there. He put her body on the ground, got back into the car, and ran her over again and again. And later he would go on to describe to his father in grotesque detail how he kept driving over her body until it was completely unrecognizable. Essentially, he actually said in the call, I ran her over until she looked like spaghetti. I can't even get that out. Now, I am going to put some clips of Wade in that phone call just after we finish this part, so be prepared for that. Now, I want to be clear that the words that do come out of his mouth are not the words of someone that's ashamed. They're the words of someone that is boasting. Now, throughout the call, he does sound quite erratic and fast-paced, talking very quick. So this was 2 women, 2 murders, all within hours of one another. Kristine killed in her own bed, in her own home, and then Diane killed on the side of the road, her body discarded beneath car tires. Neither woman had done anything to Wade Wilson to provoke this. They weren't enemies, they weren't threats, and they were just women that were living their lives, unlucky enough to cross paths with a man looking for chaos. For Kristine's family, the news came first. Police knocked on the door, delivering words that no family ever wants to hear. A daughter, a sister, a friend, someone that they love is gone. Her home turned into a complete crime scene. For Diane's family, the blow was even harder to process. Her children were completely devastated. To this day, they still speak of her with love and grief, describing how the loss of their mother left a hole that nothing could fill. So these weren't just crimes, they are ripples that tore through families, friends, and entire communities. So let's just pause here for just a wee moment. Because when we talk about Wade Wilson, it's really easy to focus on what he looks like, focus on, I guess, the viralness around the case for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. But behind the headlines, there are these 2 women, Kristine and Diane. So we need to remember them. And remember them as not just a case file, because they were daughters, friends, a mother, people with histories, hopes, futures that they didn't get to live out because of Wade Wilson's actions. All in the space as well of one October morning where Wade Wilson just decided he wanted to erase humanity. Now, the strangest part is he didn't hide and he didn't flee. He literally bragged. One of the strangest things in this case is the phone call. That phone call would go on to be one of the most chilling moments and one of the strongest pieces of evidence against him.
Oh, they said that they couldn't identify her. They needed the medical examiner to do it.
You're kidding me. Holy shit. Yeah.
Was it that bad, son?
It was that bad. I mean, I ran over her with a car 100 times, you know?
Now, before we move into the confession and the investigation, we need to rewind for just a moment because something important happened earlier that same day, and it almost gets lost once the murders come to light. So on October 7th, 2019, Wade was connected to a police call at Mila Spa. Now, this is where things can get a little bit confusing. There's Mila Spa and Melissa, hence why I was referring to her as Melissa. So when I'm saying Mila, just know I'm talking about Mila Spa. It's a business. So the woman involved was Melissa, Wade's girlfriend at the time, now former girlfriend. She had contacted the police at the time saying that Wade had attacked her in the parking lot and that he had taken her car from the bar the night before, leaving her totally stranded. She wanted the vehicle back. And at this time, she was making the call because she wanted her vehicle back. The police responded and there is body cam footage of that interaction. An officer makes contact with Wade, but crucially and critically, he isn't arrested. He leaves the scene. And here is the detail that's going to make our stomach sink. According to the reporting, when Wade showed up, he was actually driving a black Nissan that belonged to Kristine Melton. So at this point, you've actually got Wade moving through Cape Coral, interacting with police in the victim's car. This wasn't the moment that the case was solved, but it was the moment that everything clicked. And it was the moment where the timeline brushed up against intervention and then slid straight past it. And I want to be really clear here because this isn't I want to be really I want to be very clear here. This isn't really about blaming, and it's not about pinpointing where we could have done things differently. It's about how fast violence can move and how easy the pieces don't connect in real time. Because when people later ask how Wade was able to keep moving that morning, this was part of the answer. So in most homicide investigations, detective starts with fragments, a body, a crime scene, or a handful of witnesses. They spend weeks building a case, chasing leads, or hoping a suspect is going to slip up. But with Wade Wilson, there was no mystery. He made himself the center of the story because he just couldn't help himself. Hours after killing Kristine and Diane, Wade picked... Now, I am going to insert some clips here of Wade's father speaking in the trial because I think that is quite important as well.
Employed?
I'm self-employed.
What type of work do you do?
Window and door replacement.
Are you married?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your wife's name?
Melanie.
Do you live in Fort Myers?
No, ma'am.
What city do you live in?
Lakeland.
About how far is Lakeland from Fort Myers?
2 hours.
How old are you, sir?
46.
You know someone by the name of Wade Wilson.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know Wade Wilson?
He's my son.
How old were you when you found out you were going to be his father?
14 or 15.
How old was his mother at the time?
A year younger than me.
Now, were either of you in a position at that age to be able to raise him?
No, ma'am.
Was he placed up for adoption?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was he adopted by?
Candy and Steve Wilson.
And did they have any connection to you or Wade Wilson's mother?
You mean, I've spoken with Candy.
And that's his adoptive mom?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, at some point, did you and Wade Wilson connect?
Yes, ma'am.
How old was Wade Wilson when he connected with you?
18.
And was he wanting to connect with you because you were his biological father?
Yes.
And up until that point, had you ever met him?
No, ma'am.
Did you end up attempting to have a relationship with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he seem to want to have a relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you have phone calls often?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have occasions where you would see each other?
No. I went up and visited him one time in Tallahassee.
Okay. Now, did he often ask you for money?
Yes, ma'am.
Did your relationship turn into a situation where he was just asking for your help?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to turn your attention to Monday, October 7th of 2019.
The first time he said he needed help, he had done something that he couldn't take back.
Did he indicate that he and his girl had gotten into an argument?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was his girl that you were aware of at the time?
I just knew her as Mila.
And did it seem that he wanted your help because of this argument?
Yes, ma'am.
When he called you, were you actually at work?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to really give your attention and time to him to try to help him at that point?
No, ma'am.
So what did you tell him when he was asking for your help?
I just told him to call me back around dinner time. I'd be done working and we'd figure it out.
And did you at some point have a conversation with your wife about him getting in touch with you wanting your help?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during the time that he was supposed to call, about what time was he supposed to call back?
I told him around dinner time.
Now, between the time he first called that day and dinner time, did you receive a call from a detective?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that detective looking for your son?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when the detective was looking for your son, did you have any idea at that point of what had happened?
No, ma'am.
Did the detective want you to try to help them get in touch with your son?
She just gave me a number and said if he calls you back, we need to talk to him.
Okay.
So even without that call that Wade had made to his father, police already had threads to follow. So police moved really, really fucking fast. Within days of the murders, they tracked him down. When officers approached Wade, he didn't run and he didn't even seem surprised. Instead, he just smirked. that stupid fucking Joker grin that he's got on his face. And now with those tattoos, it's even worse. So he was cuffed and taken into custody immediately. Photos from his arrest and booking went pretty viral, almost instantly. To the public, his appearance looked like a villain ripped from a comic book. But to police, it wasn't theatrics. It was a man who had just killed 2 women and showed not one shred of remorse. Inside the interrogation room, Wade gave investigators more than what they'd expected. He didn't deny it, and he didn't plead innocence. He bragged. He told detectives that he'd strangled Kristine, how he decided she was weak and disposable, how Diane had begged for her life, and how he had ignored it. He described running over her again and again until her body looked like spaghetti. He showed no guilt, no humanity, and at one point he told officers that he would do it again. He simply said he felt no regret. Simply said. I know that's not like simply said, but that's like he tried to make that a nonchalant comment. Like, investigators later went on to say this was one of the most chilling interviews that they had ever conducted. It wasn't just what Wade had said, it was how he had said it. Flat, casual, with an edge of pride. So by the time that Wade Wilson was booked in jail, the case was extremely airtight. They had the phone call to his father.
Yeah, good, man.
Yeah.
That's it. I had 2 lawyers come talk to me today. 2 public defenders and lawyers. The main public.
Because that's fair. So
yeah, it is. Yeah. You're right. Okay. How was
Listen, I talked to Candy. I talked to Candy this morning. And she's super upset about everything, and she said that you sent her one of those requests, for the email correspondence or whatever.
Yeah.
She said that they were going to put some money on that today.
On the machine.
So I don't know if. So you can send messages and shit.
Yeah.
So you might want to check that, because I don't know if she's done that or not yet. But she,
she's trying.
She's having a hard time with it, like.
Yeah, I know, man. I bet she's having a really hard time. She's a pretty sweet lady, so. I mean, she something like.
I know she is. I know all that shit that you were talking wasn't real. I know. I can tell she's a little over the top with that Christianity shit, but
yeah, for sure.
She is a sweet lady, dude.
She is
for sure. She is. Okay.
She
loves the fuck out of you.
They might put money on my kiosk, but they're not going to put no fucking money on my canteen. I can tell you that right now. They're done. They've been done with that a long time ago, man.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Well, I'm going to do the best that I can do. But I want you to understand something. I want you to understand something. What this has done to me, okay? Because now I got people sending me death threats. I got people threatening my kids, my wife, my house, you name it. People are saying, that's your son.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit. You better watch yourself.
They had witnesses who saw him with both women. They had his car, and then they had his own words bragging about what he'd done. So this wasn't going to be a whodunit in court. This was simply going to be a test on how Florida would punish a man who laughed at murder. So by the time Wade Wilson walked into the Lee County courtroom in 2014, the case against him was overwhelming, to say the least. 2 women dead, a confession to his father, witnesses, forensic evidence, and again, his own words to police. So the state prosecutors were relentless. They opened by playing that phone call that Wade made to his father. The words had shocked everyone in the room. And then hearing a father repeat how his son had bragged about what he'd done silenced the entire room. Some jurors shifted uncomfortably and others wiped their eyes. Then when it came to the forensic evidence, the strangulation marks on Kristine and Diane's body, and then Diane's body being consistent with being run over repeatedly. Photographs carefully shown, but enough to leave an impression. So of course Wade's lawyers argued about his long-term drug use, meth, cocaine, alcohol, compounded that damage, that maybe he wasn't fully in control of what he'd done, as well as his brain injuries. All of that came into play. They used everything in the book to try to say that this wasn't Wade's fault. But the state then brought in their own expert, which was a neuropathologist who reviewed the scans and records. He told the jury that there was no evidence of significant brain damage. Wade knew exactly what he was doing. He had planned it, carried it out, and then confessed without shame. In the end, the expert debate didn't shift the weight of Wade's own words. The jury could hear for themselves that this wasn't the voice of someone confused or unaware. This was a man bragging. Now, police officers also went on to testify about Wade's demeanor after his arrest. They described him as cold, smirking, and chillingly casual. One officer recalled him saying he'd do it again if he'd been given the chance. Now, that landed heavy in the jury box. Now, some of the testimonies were Wade's father, which was perhaps one of the most unforgettable voices. He told the jury about the call, about the night that his son had rung him manic, describing 2 murders like he was bragging about a night out. He repeated Wade's words, how he'd strangled Kristine while she slept, how he ran over Diane again and again until she looked like spaghetti. The courtroom went silent as he spoke. Reporters said jurors looked down shaken. Some of Kristine and Diane's family members wept quietly with their hands over their mouths. Imagine the weight of that. A father forced to testify against his son, but not defending him, not excusing him, but having to repeat word for word every evil thing that he did say. It was the kind of testimony that really does stick, with not only those that were there in the room and the jurors, but those that have heard it themselves too. Because you can find it on YouTube. I'm going to link it below so that you guys can listen to this if you rattle as much as I do after this. And then, of course, came the families. So the families stood up and described their loved ones in detail. These words broke the courtroom, and even hardened officers had to wipe their eyes. For the jury, it wasn't just about the barrels of evidence anymore. It was about the faces and the families and the lives that are never, ever going to be whole again. So on June 3rd of 2024, the jury found Wade Wilson guilty on all charges. 2 counts of first-degree murder, theft, and burglary linked to his crime spree. Then came the sentencing phase. So on August 27, 2024, the jury voted to recommend the death penalty. The count came in strong 9-3 in one murder and 10-2 in the other. The judge then agreed, so Wade Wilson was sentenced to death for the murders of Kristine and Diane. In addition to this, he was also sentenced to life terms for related charges, ensuring that even if something were to overturn on any appeal, he would never ever walk free. Now, when that sentence was read, the families cried, screamed, hooray, cheered. Some clapped hands, others just stared at Wade. But Wade, did he show any human anything? He didn't. He didn't. I know you what he didn't. He sat there smirking. Even as the death row sentence was being read, he showed no emotion. So essentially that was the trial. And it was a father testifying against his son, families forced to hear every gruesome detail, and a jury staring at a man with a fucking Joker grin, deciding if he should live or die, and ultimately making the right decision, which is fantastic. Now, at the point of Wade's trial as well, he had gotten all of his tattoos. I believe he got them in jail, the Joker ones. If I'm recalling my research on that, it's not really something I added into this too much, like in my research in when did he get his tattoos. But if I'm recalling, he got his Joker ones in jail, and that's when he walked into the courtroom with them. So as of today, 2025, Wade Wilson sits on Florida's death row, convicted of 2 murders and sentenced to die, housed in one of the most secure facilities in the state. So he is no longer that lean, grinning man from the 2019 mugshot. Photos show him bloated, teeth missing, still covered in tattoos that scream hate and chaos, but the Joker smile, all that still remains etched in his skin and his being. But he's seriously a fucking soggy ass, sloppy ass Chili Joe sandwich. And I say Chili Joe because he's like Chicken Joe. but like Chicken Joe's the best. So he's like a Chili Joe, sloppy and messy. He's a Sloppy Joe, big old Sloppy Joe sandwich. Ugh. Honestly, to any chick that ever thought he was fucking, like ever put up one of those stupid TikTok montages of this guy, or I don't stand with you. I'm a girl's girl, but I can't get on that. Nah. Nuh-uh. This guy's sick, man. He's sick. Ugh. And honestly, I just want to put a little bit of fact in here. Because this case is in Florida, Wade's sentence does come with a very specific reality. So Florida has one of the largest death rows in the United States and also one of the slowest execution timelines. Appeals can stretch on for 10, 15, or 20 plus years, depending on how aggressively the defense decides to fight or how quickly the courts move. Now, Florida still uses a lethal injection as their primary method, but uniquely, inmates can choose the electric chair. I know they can choose, crazy. Only a handful of prisoners in this modern day history actually do choose that method, but the option is still there. And politically speaking, Florida is pretty firm on not overturning death row convictions. So I don't believe Wade's will be overturned. And like we've covered, if it does get overturned in some case, he's certainly not walking free in this lifetime. Mind you, the headline of heinous, atrocious, and cruel. Hang on, I've stuttered and not worded that properly. Let me go back. So if your case has been labeled heinous, atrocious, or cruel, you will generally be backed by the state in the death row conviction. So in Wade's case, his was labeled all three, meaning his chances aren't looking fucking very good. I'm glad we got there in the end. Sorry, that was a bit stuttery, wasn't it? So basically, old Wade is fucked. And either way, he's not getting out. But I am going to add in some of the leaked prison calls from Wade Wilson's prison, because he has been making some calls. And for some reason, not for some reason, obviously, my TikTok feed fell into this rabbit hole of Wade Wilson leaked jail calls. So I'm going to include some of those in here. In them, you can literally hear him laughing. He's bragging. Like it's like he flirts with women. Like he's had so many relationships. I can't keep up. I don't know what's true, what's false. And I really didn't go into all the research with that, but I'm going to add them in. I think he is currently married or engaged, or he's with someone, very much so with someone. If he's not with that same one that he was with, he's certainly with a new one. And just to get into that, since his conviction, Wade has reportedly received letters, fan mail, and even marriage proposals, women who are calling themselves his girlfriend or even claim to be his wives. They defend him online, saying that he's just misunderstood, that his crimes were exaggerated, and that he deserves love too. This is a phenomenon that you literally see this so often. You've seen it with Ted Bundy. There's others. I just can't think off the top of my head, but like I know Ted Bundy's one that you see that so often, and it makes me turn. And I know with Wade, it feels different because it's like rolled over into some pop culture overlap because of his looks as well. It's like people seriously forget that good looks do not make you a good human being by any means. So, going to include some of those jail calls now. Enjoy those, and then we're going to crack into the end of this app.
Wait, what happened?
There's another one. There's another female found dead in Cape Coral.
You're kidding me.
No, I swear to God. And there's another female, and it's like there's like two in Ocala, and then one
there's another one in Cape Coral, though?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't going to say that's because that's not good, but that shows them like something, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Some kind of credibility.
Yeah,
I was like, Jules, maybe he's really not. I don't think he is because he doesn't seem like it.
I'm not. But the shitty thing is like they just get to arrest me and let me sit here while they figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And
of course.
That's fucking
But you
bullshit,
can
though.
still get a lawyer. If you get a lawyer, you get a bond on your shit. You can still bond out. You know what I mean?
No, I can't bond out. I can't because I was on probation, so it violated my probation.
Fuck my life. You really fucked yourself.
I'm on probation.
I thought there was a little bit of hope for me. I thought there was a little bit of hope, okay?
Why is there still not? Hold on. Whoa. Let's relook at this. Hold on.
Hi.
Hey.
Hola.
What's up? Hi. Hola. Hello.
So you didn't mean hello. Okay, so you know another word.
One word at a time. One word at a time. I told you. I wanted to have to take my tutoring sessions slow. I told you that. One word at a time. That's right. Yes, sir. That's right. That's right.
Okay, so,
one word a day. That's how we're going to go.
I want to discuss your future character witnesses. I need, how long has she known you? Do you guys, I know she said that she just, I don't know, you guys just got engaged or something like that, or? I was
so 2 months.
2 months? Okay, so did you know her outside?
I forgot food in there. I gotta eat it. Yeah, just leave it in there. I'll grab it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Did you know her before you were arrested, or is this
So no, this is like a new.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
new. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from everything you've told me, you're definitely gonna have to be in protective custody. There's pre-trial going on, and
for sure. As soon as I get ready to leave this jail after the 27th, I need for you to make sure from there off the jump already that everything's straight with the Department of Corrections. Because just understand too. Remember that.
Isn't he fucking quite the creature? He's quite the creature, this guy. That's why I picked this case for Monday Madness, because when I heard about this case, it wasn't the crime is gruesome. It's gnarly. It is just absolute disregard for humanity, unbelievable. But I think him going viral, that part made me fucking viral for not the right reason, if that makes sense. That pissed me off. And then obviously a lot of cases stick with me. For some reason, this one really stuck with me. I remember when I first heard it, and I listened to so many podcasts, so many short TikToks. I listened to all of the testimonies. I couldn't wrap my fucking head around it. And maybe that is why other people got so intrigued too, because it was before I'd even known he'd gone completely viral at that point. And then I obviously got on that side of For You and started to get really pissed off. But maybe people initially started for the same reason as me, and then it fell into some weird twisted love form. But that's why I thought I'd bring it to you guys, because I'd never heard of it, and then I heard it, and then I couldn't get it out of my head. So that's what the Monday Madness episodes are all about. They're the madness eps, That's why we're here. If you hear that chingling too, it's my bracelet, so sorry about that. But yeah, that brings us to the end of Monday Madness Season 3, Episode 2, I think this one will be. If not, whatever episode it is, hello. So yeah, let's remember this case. Let's not remember him, but let's remember them, Kristine and Diane. I think when we're walking away from this case, that's what we need to remember. So this was our monthly Monday Madness episode, and this was Wade Wilson, the Deadpool. So this was our monthly Monday Madness episode. Thank you for joining. So this was our Monday Madness episode. Thank you so much for joining in this month for our madness. Please join me again for either next week's ep or next Monday Madness ep if these are the only ones you like to come for. And until next time, stay loud, stay sharp, and don't let the monsters in plain sight fool you.